Okay. Right. Welcome, everybody. Wednesday morning. I hope everybody's doing well. So, hopefully, today should be a bit smoother this morning. And this afternoon, we should get a bit of direction. So, pretty happy. We just had a number two trigger on euro. So, that's what I wanted. Right. Dollar. Not much movement on the dollar yesterday. Let me just let these people in. There we go. Right. So, I had this marked up yesterday. And obviously, I think it's good to go through it today. So I had this marked up yesterday, and the reason why I was buying the dollar yesterday, we obviously had this gap Monday night. All right, so as always, wanted it to come back down, retest. But yeah, I was expecting this level here to hold, but actually, and this is a prime example. I can't showcase this any better, you have to have every 500 marked up on the DXY. And for anyone who's not using TradingView and trying to do all of this on the MetaTrader app, switch over to TradingView. All right, because it's going to help you a lot more. You should be reading your charts on TradingView, and then obviously, entering if you want to. You can enter on TradingView or you can enter on MetaTrader, which is what I use. So that's obviously what I was looking at yesterday. We actually crushed down here 98,500. We're now stuck in, what we've got to look at is the patterns which are occurring here. All right. So, like for example, last week we were trapped between this range here. This week looks like we're trapped between this range here. All right. Now there has to be some kind of change in environment. There has to be some kind of, news impact or some data, which we're going to have a bit later on. All right, for it to move out of a range. All right, and you will find this with the dollar. That's exactly what happens. Before the US decided to go full ham on Iran. We were trading between 98 and 97,500. As soon as something impactful happens, we pump up, and then obviously we start trading within this range. Now, the kind of hype has happened, and so I am expecting us to be trading within this range here. All right, because we've obviously got inflation data. If dollar prints higher before the US session starts, I would anticipate that CPI data is going to come in high. All right. Because that will then put pressure on them to obviously keep interest rates high. And obviously, that is good for investment coming into the US dollar. All right. So, we're obviously not going to be able to tell that. Well, we can't tell, but yes, so that is obviously, one thing that we've got to look at. Yields holding, I wouldn't say they're flying. I'd say they are recovering, 100%. If you look at, yields here, we obviously are at all pretty much in an area of all-time highs. We've obviously, not at all-time highs, but we are within that area. And obviously, I've just got this random range marked up here, which seems to be holding really, really well. So yeah, let's wait and see. Obviously, what happens here, but obviously yields, starting to recover. We've also got stocks recovered a lot yesterday. All right, so obviously that was one of the reasons why I was pretty confident. Yeah, it wasn't the smoothest of days yesterday, but it was still obviously on schedule. Layering in helped within our zone, and obviously yeah, everyone should have been profitable if you hadn't have obviously over layered in, which I know that a couple of you did do that yesterday. So these are obviously positives here. Now, obviously, and obviously reading between the lines of the news, I think we've had China, Russia, and North Korea were interviewed about obviously what is happening. They don't agree with it, which is interesting, that they've got a slightly different view where every country, I think as long as it's contained within the country, it's not up to another country to dictate how that country should be run. So I'm not here, I'm not political. I don't feel like anyone should be. I don't feel like you should judge whether something's right or wrong because we don't understand it because it's not our culture. Whether it is right or wrong, is it right for a country to obviously go and almost do exactly the same and dictate how another country should live their lives. But let's wait and see. I don't want to get into it in the chat because I am completely neutral. I just like to ask the questions. So right, let's have a look at what we've got coming up today. We've obviously got the CPI data uh, coming up here. Um, CPI data, for anyone who doesn't know, is a measure of inflation. What I recommend everybody does every single month, the same news events happen. All right. So just like you journal your trades, journal what happened with the news. How did it affect it? What was the results? What was, where did the dollar end up going to? Did the dollar continue in that the direction, or did we have an hour of it going one way and then, a couple of hours of it going the completely the opposite direction? So these are all things that I recommend if you want to get into fundamentals. It's going to take probably longer to learn fundamentals than it does technicals, but I would say it's probably the most valuable skill that you can learn because it is printed, it's hard data, it's not subjective, there's no hype, there's no expectation. It is what is happening and what has happened. So that's obviously how we've got to look at fundamental data. And actually, once you can start to utilize it, you can obviously, yeah, you'll be really, really happy because it's going to help you, make that decisive decision that you need to make as to where a trade is going. So apart from CPI data, not a lot coming out. We've obviously got this whole dark cloud happening around us at the moment. Yeah, it's a pretty worrying time. But obviously it's not, it's obviously given us a lot of liquidity in the markets, but not necessarily easy liquidity because markets aren't going in one direction. Now, let's go through obviously everything that we are looking at here. So, GBP USD, I'm expecting this to go higher. Happy with where it is. I've got one entry here. I'm looking for another one. It should be in the middle. I think it's 34225 is in, our kind of middle point. That's not tapped yet. If I was to have a look, not tapped yet. So that's obviously one. We then got Euro. We've got two tapped on here. Only just tapped. We got one at break even. But again, looking for this to go higher. So I'm looking for dollar. I'm expecting it to come at least back into this region here. If you look at how much dollars pumped, pound and euro haven't dumped the equivalent. That dollar move, if dollar was, long term strong, that should have dumped these right down here. Well, it hasn't. So that obviously tells me, something. Now, Aussie. Okay, Aussie was an interesting one. I didn't want to buy from here. I just feel like it's overextended. All right, which means it's been bought too much. So it's the only one where I pushed our entries a little bit higher, and I'd be happy to kind of sell this. And we're not going with overall strength. We're going with what potential funds and larger capital might be looking at because they will have capitalized on this from down here and they'll be looking to take some profits off the table. So especially with yields driving higher, obviously that's going to keep gold roughly where it is. And then what's going to end up happening, they are going to end up yeah, taking profits off the table, and then we'll be trading the profits being taken off of the table. We're trading it to the downside, and that's why we're obviously not looking at a huge overall target here. We're just looking at a movement into an area, which would be this one here, all right, into this area here, before potentially buyers would take back over. So that's the overall position that I'm looking at here, but I've got to be a bit strategic into how I'm looking at it. We then got USD JPY, happy, comfortable. We've got obviously prices of oil. Whereas oil, sticking around that 85. We had that mad rush, on Sunday evening. But obviously everything's come back down to it. But 80, believe it or not, 80 is, still relatively high. So don't think it is the ideal equilibrium for oil. If I get it on here, the ideal probably equilibrium to not really rock the boat is between 70 to $50 a barrel. That's where it spends most of its time, and obviously that's when it's probably at its happiest. So these general spikes, are pretty horrible, and yeah, we obviously need to not kind of worry too much. So yeah, that's obviously the kind of equilibrium that oil would need to get to. So oil is still high, and so obviously yen. Remember, I explained it in a video. Lots of you haven't watched it. I think about 18 of you watched it. But obviously, why it's important for obviously yen. Why oil is so important for yen, and it's because they're importers of energy. So oil, gas, heavy. They rely on them since the Hiroshima. I always say it wrong, but yeah, since that happened, they've not really invested too much into creating their own energy, I guess, because of worry. So obviously they're big importers, and so let's wait and see. We obviously need the price of oil to go down, and also government bonds. This is why I've been happier to sell it, because obviously bonds are higher. Yen exchange a lot of money into the US dollar, to obviously buy US bonds, and so that's why they're heavily invested in the government bond market. So obviously that is also important. So yeah. And last but not least, gold. I have entered this morning. I think I'm got in a little bit later. I think my first entry was 5195, and then I had 5185. Let me have a look. 5195, and I had five. No, yeah, my next one was 5185, which hasn't triggered. So yeah, I've got one position on gold. I'm going to take it probably up to around this area and then come out, because it's not really moved how I was expecting. However, if everything moves how we want it to, it should drift everything up higher. So that's a roundabout of obviously what we've got involved. We've got at the moment, I've got Euro USD. I've got one position in profit and one in a bit of loss. We got pound in loss, we got gold in profit, and we got USD JPY in a little bit of loss. So overall, running a tiny bit in drawdown, but obviously not too worrying. So right, let's have a look through some of these questions. Greg, I love it. You're active. When looking at yields, on Monday they started at the top of our range and ended at the bottom. Yesterday they started at the bottom and climbed nearly halfway back through our range. Today they are climbing for now. Why are you predicting the dollar weaker? I love it that you asked that at the beginning. Don't give me a chance to go through everything. So yeah, like I explained, dollar obviously works in ranges. I am For it to break above here, it's got to take something. All right. There is nothing until 12. So, like what, same thing that happened yesterday and obviously, helped us out is going to be the same thing that's going to happen today and help us out. And then obviously that is what we're expecting until 12:30. And then we will either see us trading back in this range, or in this range. I'm kind of reserved. I don't think the US wanna reduce interest rates right now. So I don't know. But obviously that's just me. Greg, I think in the news today, US crude oil and gasoline inventories could have an impact. Yep. Not so much. I don't think. Remember what I explained. All right. And obviously, we've got, this number here, this forecast, that's what's priced in. All right. I think if there was a worry on oil, it would have stayed around this area here. All right, definitely above 100. The fact that it's obviously pumped up, it doesn't. I don't think it's going to worry us too much. Iran a few years back was on an oil ban, and obviously that was obviously what obviously hurt oil previously. It's pretty much the same scenario with a little bit of oil mixed in. Alex, when the news priced in when CPI comes out on Wednesday. Uh, so I'm not quite sure I understand that, but obviously, yes, they're expecting it to be. I mean, it's very, very, neutral. It's roundabout where they've expected. So that this would be, if it comes in a roundabout, then expect us just to stay where we are. Don't know how the current trades are going, but should we close before news? Yes. You guys know that obviously I update you all the time, so I will keep you updated as a rule at the moment. Obviously, because daylight saving hours in the US went forward um, last week, last Saturday. Ours go forward at the end of this month. So every year we got 3 weeks, 3 weeks where it is a bit weird. It feels weird for obviously me trading US between 12 and 1 as opposed to between 1 and 2. But yeah, so normally I'd say have all trades closed before quarter to 1, but at the moment it's quarter to 12. So yeah. Krista, what time is it there? I'm in Asia. I want to take note of the time zone difference. Yeah. So whereabouts in Asia are you? Whereabouts in Asia are you? Right, that's about it. That's about it from, me. Let me just have a quick flick to see how we're doing here. So yeah, it's running in a nice bit of drawdown on everything. So there's, wait and see. One thing that I wanted to explain to everyone, I don't worry about drawdown because obviously that's why we don't have a precise entry where we're going to enter. We have an area, yeah, all right, and anywhere in this area we are happy, all right, and that's why I obviously want to bet like you're a pounder as well. I want to encourage everyone to be like, what, I really want it to come down a little bit and trigger this one because it doesn't have to go up as much, or it doesn't have to go into profit too much as long as that triggers, So obviously all these things are what we need to be thinking about, and obviously why, so yeah, I don't panic, I don't worry, everything's planned, prep. This is all part of the plan. We obviously want price to come into our area. So we can't be disheartened, we can't be uncomfortable if it's coming, little bit deeper into our area. Otherwise, our areas would look a lot like this, yeah? All right, the fact that we've got a nice healthy area means, everything's healthy, everything's good, we are all happy. All right. So obviously that is one thing that we need to really, really, we need to, really, really kind of focus on. So yeah, and obviously everything is as it is here. We've got space, we've got everything. So let's wait and see how everything plays out, and then hopefully we can capitalize on it. So, but the main thing is do not keep on adding. I had a couple of people yesterday, especially on Aussie, would be like adding here, and obviously they're in about five positions, and what ends up happening, it gets to here, they panic, they close out. What ends up happening then, it comes back into profit. All right. Remember, the goal of having three within our, zone is one, it keeps you very, very structured, keeps you disciplined. You know where I've entered, you know where everyone's entered. All right. But obviously, what it also means is if you tap here, you've only got to go back to here, you break even, you start to come in here and profit. You've got two positions then. All right. So it's brilliant. If we have a worst case, a bit like Aussie, some of you didn't close out earlier, you actually held. But obviously, you got all three positions here. Aussie ended up going up to about here. All right. That should have been a massive profit. All right. But if you're not structuring it like this and you're like three positions here, you end up with too many trades open. All right. I explained yesterday how little the market moved during peak London hours and peak New York hours. It didn't move hardly anything. So if it's not moving, we've got to be a bit patient. All right, so that's what it's all about, and obviously that's how we're trying to capitalize on it. So yeah, right. I think that is oh, Korea, cool. Are you back into taking three positions on gold? I'm trading gold carefully. Obviously, I got it right both times yesterday. I got it right Monday. I take what I did from last week. I took a few days off of it. I then want to trade it, but work on getting it right. All right. And obviously once I get it right a couple of days in a row, I'm then happy. So that's why I'm going to ease into it. I'm still only going to trade gold London because I don't feel like I need to trade it US, but obviously I'll post it still in the afternoon. So yeah, these are obviously all things, but yes, I'm going to take three. The only thing would say, because I explained yesterday about the range of gold, normally it's a lot tighter, but the range of gold is pretty high at the moment. So there's some quite big swings. So just be wary of that. So maybe reduce lot sizes a bit. I've made stop losses a bit smaller. I've protected us. I've moved my entries down kind of 10 pips. I had it originally. I had this up here, but obviously I've moved it down to obviously just help us tiny bit. But yeah, right. I hope everyone has a fantastic morning, and yeah, let's smash it. So have a good one, everyone. Have a good one. Let's go.